Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Originals. A great episode. Obviously, Klaus has showed up in New Orleans looking for Haley. Obviously, there's no, he even goes to Marcel, who Marcel is back in town, which obviously a lot of people don't treat Marcel with respect, because it's like, yeah, once upon a time, you were king of this town, but it's like, you no longer represent the vampires because of him being what he is, because it's not like, anything or anyone else could really take him on, because if there was a hybrid problem, he'd be able to take the bite. No one else would be able to. So you even have that lady who's, kind of new to everything. She's only popped up recently in New Orleans, but you can tell she's going to be the centerfold for a lot of stuff. I don't know if she's necessarily going to be the main antagonist, but I'm sure she's going to be one of the people kind of inciting a lot of stuff. She's going to be the one that ends up being the one that pushes for the pitchforks, essentially. She's the one that's going to rev up and flurry up the vampires, I think, is what that's all going to come down to. Ultimately, we kind of have to wait and see on that, but that's where my mind, I don't know, she might ultimately be behind a lot of what goes down, but I'll kind of get to that soon enough. Obviously, Klaus is in town, but he's doing all he can to avoid Haley, because we end up, not Haley, Hope. We saw a memory of Hope a little bit later on where she basically was younger and she cast a spell to do astral projection, and she actually projected upon Klaus killing people. I'd assume this has to have something to do with his little revenge spree, or his getting rid of any potential enemy spree, trying to protect Elijah. I think that was kind of the whole antithesis behind. I think that was what that was connected to. Who knows? But the moment he saw Hope look at him, he screamed at her, "Leave!" And that was kind of one of probably the last times they interacted with each other. And because of that, he's going out of his way to avoid her altogether. He goes to Declan, which the way Declan kind of responded at the beginning, I was like, oh, is Declan on Verbane? Because it's in his response, but I guess it's not. I guess she's never really had to worry about it as much because everyone's been cool, calm, and collected. Everything's under control. So I guess it's not really necessary to get your humans walking around with Vervain in the system. So I guess that's kind of why. But it seems like Hope and him are somewhat close, because he even has a picture that Hope drew of him and stuff like that. He's like, oh, because he kind of starts shitting, talking class. It's like, oh yeah, it must have been, oh, so it wasn't necessarily you that kind of left her messed up. It's like, well, to be fair, the whole her and Elijah situation, once again, it's complicated. It's not, it's because Haley saw a side of Elijah she didn't really like, a side of him she kind of knew was there, but didn't know to the extent it was there. And also just a murky situation. So it kind of makes her put a little love life on Hope. Plus the whole fact of the matter is there's a whole supernatural side of things that she's kind of keeping from Declan, who is in fact a human. So all that shit talking he did, Costa's just all right, you know what? About to kill him, I assume. But Hope stopped him, so. But the twist being, I did not expect things to kind of play out the way they did. Obviously you had Marcel speaking to Henry. Basically, he's like, I can be the one to help him. And it's like, Henry, you had something to do with Haley disappearing. Why won't you say anything? It's like, well, obviously he can't say anything because his sire told him not to. And it's like, of course. It's literally what I brought up last episode, because Cole put the idea in her head that enough problems will reunite the Michelson family. I figured that was going to spark something in her. Kind of had a thought that maybe she was connected to this. That is what it was. She literally kind of pseudo-kidnapped her mom. Because the moment she did that, even I was like, that seems like a Klaus thing to do. She even admits, she pulled it from, because those are Klaus tactics. She's been reading the memoirs that Cammy wrote. Also, really quickly, there was kind of a side note I thought was just kind of the funniest thing. It's Roman, obviously the boy from her school, was going around their house. It's there's all this weird Viking stuff and all this. Because he had brought up the fact is there's this whole thing about you being some kind of princess or something, Romanian princess or something like that. It's well, to be fair, she's more I guess you can make the argument, Viking princess, if you want to kind of get all technical with it. I think that kind of fits. But nevertheless, it's I found this redheaded lady that's still wrapped up in everything. They're and you have Hope being yeah, that's my dad's ex. Some sleeping spell. She's kind of don't know what to do with her, which is funny. It's been yeah, it's been God, I'm blanking. How long has it been? Yeah, it's been 8 years or so since the last time we dealt with Aurora, and they still haven't decided. It's just, I know it's just kind of like a throwaway reference, but it's kind of interesting to know that she's just kind of laying about. It's just like, yeah, what do we do with it? And I don't know. I don't know. Which is, it's weird just having, I mean, to be fair, Klaus hasn't been there in such a long time, so obviously it's okay to just have his ex kind of just laying about. It's just funny when you actually think about it like that. But nevertheless, it was hope all behind it because she knew that this would kind of force her dad to come back home to look for Haley. And because it turns into this whole situation of like, you know, for her, it's like, you haven't talked to me. I was a scared little girl because that moment is something she'd never seen from Klaus before. She had never seen that monstrous side because he went out of his way. I mean, that's another thing too. He had his entire family help him hide his monstrous side from her because it's like, we never want, like everyone wanted Hope to always look at him as her knight in shining armor, that he's this great hero. Like they never wanted her to see that dark side of him. And her seeing that scared the living crap out of him because he saw the look on her face. He never wanted to see her look at him that way. But for her, it's like, I was a little girl. I just wanted you to explain it to me. Tell me that you love me, but you never came back. And for him, it's like, that's my way of protecting you. And that's kind of the Michelson way in general. It's like when stuff goes down, to protect the people they love, they feel like the best thing they can do is push them away. And that's kind of a lot of people's way of handling it, but especially with the Michelsons, because for Klaus, it's like all the stuff he's done over the years, he's not proud of it, and he doesn't want that darkness to swallow his daughter. And it's like, there's no wonder you're broken, because it's like, I was bound to ruin you at some point in time. If I stayed, I would have ruined you. Going away, I might have ruined you, but at least, you know, you were damned if I do and damned if I don't. Like, you were destined for this because I'm your father, that you would always end up this way. And for Hope, it leaves her so conflicted because it's almost like, because in her mind, it's like, maybe my dad doesn't love me. Maybe like, you know, it's like, maybe he loved that little girl that I was, but who I am now, maybe he hasn't said anything, hasn't come to me because he doesn't love me anymore. And it's like, that, don't ever think that for a second. It's kind of what Marcel was kind of getting at. And it's such an interesting thought process behind it too, because for Hope, her whole thought is like, my family literally sacrificed everything, because she blames herself. It's like, I'm the reason my family broke up. My family can never be together again because of me. And that's a lot to kind of hold on your shoulders as a kid. That means she's probably been thinking about that all these years growing up without her family around her. It's like, they can never be together because of me, because they sacrificed everything to save me, you know? And for her, in her mind, it's like, okay, I do this point system. I do good, I get a point. I do bad or kind of lose control of my emotions, kind of get angry, I lose a point. And it's like, that's kind of a messed up way to kind of live your life, kind of dictating all your, it's like, you need to just be able to live. You shouldn't have to dictate every little aspect of your life, kind of keep tally marks. It shouldn't work like that. But for her, it's like, I want to prove that I want to be worthy of like what my family's given up. And it's like, she kind of feels like she hasn't been, but Marcel's like, you have. And I like that he kind of steps up in, like, it never gets brought up, but it's like, yo, stepping up to be Uncle Marcel. I thought that's kind of sweet, you know. He gives her a hug. She's like, no, I'm okay. He's like, no, this is kind of more for me. I'm like, it's kind of a sweet moment. Like, no, I understand, but it's like, yeah, Uncle Marcel. So that's kind of pretty neat. I mean, I guess when you actually think about it, because he is kind of like a son to Klaus, he is kind of like an uncle / big brother to Hope. So, like I say, it's so sad because when you don't really take the time to think about, like, I mean, once again, it's like she had to live all these years without her dad. She's had her mom, sure, but it's just like, you know, that creeping feeling like I'm the one responsible for my family being in the situation that it's in, and it's just, like I said, that's just a lot for a kid to handle. Then there's a whole situation with Roman. She ends up telling him everything about who she is and everything, which she handles it a lot better than I thought he would, which immediately I go, I'm suspicious. Random dude from school, yeah, he was able to kind of find your files and everything. He gave justification, but it's still a little creepy that he found you and was able to track you down. Even the coming looking for Henry thing, it's like, oh, I came to apologize because he heard everything about what happened. It's like, I don't know, man. It seems a little damn too suspicious. Like, it's like, it might be a situation that he's always known who Hope was, and so he's always been trying to keep an eye. I don't know. That's like, it's that situation of every time someone just kind of seems a little suspicious, they're full on suspicious. They're at the top of my list of suspicious in this case. So I have no idea what that whole situation is going to be about. Obviously, he's a potential love interest, but it might be one of those love interests that's kind of set in motion to kind of manipulate you without you really knowing it. So ultimately, we'll kind of have to wait and see about that. So. But what I also love that this episode sets up too is the whole nature behind everything of like Hope could be potentially, and it's something that Benson's the only one that's at that crossroad of like, should like because everything he's talking to that fortune teller Ivy, which I even love that whole situation. You could definitely tell at the beginning like Freya was kind of like, oh yeah, go talk to, because Freya's probably trying to push for that because I guess it's someone that Vincent's kind of shown interest in over this time. But the fact of the matter is, it's like he's in a crossroads because he's like, hey, I mean, Hope. I keep doing that. Just H and H kind of messes with me. Hope could literally go either way. She could be the revolution. She could be the one that kind of brings everything together because of where she stands in this whole. Maybe pantheon would be kind of the appropriate word. Probably not. I'm probably misusing that because I'm an idiot. But it's just who she is, being this powerful witch that she is. Her mom being Haley, a hybrid, head of the Crescent Wolves, her dad, Klaus Michelson, one of the originals, and so it makes her special. Even the fact is that she can make werewolves into hybrids, so, which is kind of an interesting thing, because that was kind of like Klaus's whole big plan at one point in time, mainly to kind of have an army under his own control, and also the fact of the matter is, to also kind of not be alone. It's kind of another sideline to that, but it's like she could be that, or she could be the end of everything. Also, going back to, she's also a witch, so she represents like all three sides of like the spectrum of supernatural. So, but she could also ultimately be the destruction, which is what all the cards were foretelling. Like, there's a lot of good stuff, but there was also negative stuff because it's showing the two different paths. It's like, so Vincent's plan is to try and get her to go down the right path. Because in his mind, it's like, oh, Klaus is going to be the biggest problem. It's like, no, Haley is. And now everyone's thinking it too, because even with these circumstances, even Josh is kind of like, yeah, I know you want to protect, Hope because of your connection to the Michelsons and stuff like that, but she is a Michelson and she's dangerous because she has the potential to make other hybrids, because that's never even been an issue with Klaus in this series in particular. Like, because the last time he tried it failed, blew up in his face, so he's never tried that again, which is kind of interesting that he hasn't ever tried that again. I guess it's just kind of like, well, it failed once and they tried to go up against him, so it's like, well, the last thing he needs is another army of people just as strong as him, like with his abilities, coming after him. So like, I'll be the only one of my kind, with the exception of Haley, as well as the whole thing, souped up vamp that thing that Marcella is, so. Because it's something that Ivy kind of touched on. It's like, yeah, she can see into the future, but it's like, there's only so far you should look, because it gets that situation of like, well, things might, depending on your thought process, like things written in stone or not, can the future be changed? Like, you look too far ahead, you might find yourself in a pickle knowing too much that you shouldn't know, and life shouldn't be lived like that, knowing so much. It's like, you want to skip to the end of it all, Vincent, but we can't and shouldn't do that. So we'll ultimately see, because I think Vincent's going to try and step forward to try and be that beacon to kind of lean her in the right direction, especially with Haley potentially being gone, because it looks like someone found her, even though Hope did a very good job cloaking her. So I think that speaks a lot to the fact is that someone found her, even though you cloaked her, which, Hope is pretty powerful in what she does. It's even a spell she created. So how was someone able to find Haley? And it looked like it was a struggle. That looked like that was fur. So was it a werewolf that kind of got her, or what? Then there's the whole situation with Henry. Someone got to him and killed him, which I think that says a lot too, because it's like, how do you kill a hybrid? To be fair, he's a youngling. He doesn't really know how to control everything. He's kind of like, the whole point was for him to kind of detox and everything, to kind of decay a little bit, come out, be perfectly fine. And this whole situation is going to incite many, many different issues. For one, he was a werewolf. The werewolves weren't really backing him, but his mom, Lucina, like being, a wolf and being the only one kind of looking after him. Plus, it'd be looked at, the vampires must have did it because they were seeking retribution. So that's going to cite some problems between in particular, Lucina and the werewolves. But and the vampires. But I don't know if necessarily the werewolves will back her up. Maybe they will, because it's like, no matter what his circumstances were, he was still theirs. And Marcel has the whole thing about no kids getting involved, so obviously like he's going to have to step in about this whole situation. So then it turns into this whole situation of like, it's going to like, anyone's a suspect, anyone could have been behind it, so who did it? Obviously people are probably going to point to Marcel, because it's like, you're the only one strong enough to potentially do it after you said all this stuff about protecting kids. So things could get ugly on many different directions. So especially because Marcel is kind of out of the way in this whole situation, because Josh is the one that's kind of been running things. It's like, you come back into town, try to make things seem like you've been chipping in here and there, but you're the one that left. I'm the one that's been here this entire time. I got used to not having any issues. So once again, this is a situation that's kind of not too far from like what the show's always had, and that's friends becoming enemies type of thing. So it's like, you never know who could have been behind this. Like, there's some greater force at play here trying to, is this all some ploy to resurrect the, Hollow, or something else happening beneath the surface? It's like someone else trying to take things, because someone must be trying to destroy this piece. For what particular reason, I don't know. Then you also have the Freya and Keelan situation, because it's like, once again, the Michaelsons have that tendency. They push people away. In Freya's case, it's like, I can't love you and love my family. It's kind of literally the same situation as Rebecca. I mean, I guess that's kind of the whole point. Everything is supposed to be isolating the Michaelsons from everyone. To kind of leave them alone. Because it is a situation of like, in these many cases, like, it's always one or the other. You can't have happiness and your family. Hopefully, when it's all said and done, you can. That you can have your love and your family. Like, Rebecca and Marcel can be a thing, while Freya and Keelan can be that. There can be some happy middle ground there. But currently, where things stand, it doesn't seem like that's a possibility, you know? For them, it's like, I have to, like, if I'm with you, Keelan, like, I'm gonna be distracted. And she's like, I don't want you to eventually resent me, because basically you had to put your life on hold like you've already had to for my sake. So just go live your life. I want you to be happy no matter what it costs me. It's just that very complicated situation of, do you put your love first? Do you put your family first? When it comes to the Michaelsons, it's always like, family comes first, foremost in everything, So especially under these circumstances with Haley being gone, Hope is going to blame herself, but Costa's like, no, this is all my fault. You wouldn't even been in this position if I had been the better father. So he's like, I'm going to take responsibility for this, but Hope is still bottling it all up and taking the blame herself, because it's like, none of this would have happened if she not knocked Haley out and put her in this position, all for the sake of trying to see her dad to get her family back together. Or more so, see her dad. Like, I'm sure the aspect of, like, getting her entire family back together would be a keynote, but the person she wanted to see first and foremost, person she cared about seeing the most, was her dad, So, like I said, I am loving the direction that this season is taken, and I'm very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us when this all continues, like finding out where Haley is and who is the one that killed Henry. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.